and welcome to the Revolut Insider Podcast, where we explore Revolut's rocket ship from the inside out, one episode at a time. I'm your host, Alex Carril, and joining me today is Wojtek Ptak, Head of Engineering for Revolut Business. Hi, Wojtek.
Hi, and thanks for having me today.
I was hoping you can share some insight into Revolut Business from an engineering perspective, as well as provide some tips for other engineers out there.
Yep, let's do it.
All right, let's get into it. Can you share a bit about your background and experience in engineering?
Sure. Before Revolut, I think I had around 20 years of experience in the field. I'm especially focused on product engineering. That's my background. So from the technical perspective, I was involved from building distributed systems, software architecture, data platforms to applied machine learning. I had my own company for several years. We are working with Fortune 500 companies, multiple ones in US and UK especially. And we were doing big data analytics and what we call now machine learning for many, many years, for many actually interesting applications, especially like global finances analysis. So for instance, for the Coca-Cola company, we were gathering all of the sales data. You can imagine how much the data there is and trying to find out some patterns, useful analytics, et cetera, et cetera. And that was many, many years ago before the platforms that we have nowadays. So I'm so excited to see how the field goes this direction. And also, I was a CTO for various companies before joining Revolut.
And this was in the United States, or you were a CTO here in Europe?
Remotely or here.
Wow, yeah. And we're in Poland now?
Yeah, welcome to Krakow.
Have you moved around a lot for work?
A bit. I'm actually born in Krakow and living in Krakow, but I was working around the globe. So I was working for a Norwegian company and living in Oslo. When I had my own company, I was very frequently to US, like every quarter for a couple of weeks, especially New York and Atlanta, where the Coca-Cola headquarters are, or in London and Scotland. So moved around quite a lot, but the base was always in Krakow, I would say.
And how does it feel to be back here and setting your roots down? Where are you from?
It's a lovely city. It's small enough not to be annoying, but big enough to have everything that the big city needs, right?
Those modern conveniences?
Yeah, exactly. From really good universities, great choice of restaurants, to the connections to pretty much every big city. But the most important thing for me when it comes to Krakow is the location. It's very close to the mountains. I'm a super fan of sports, and so I do downhill biking, I do skiing, freeride, snowboarding.
Nice to have the access to so many things and being so close.
Exactly. I really believe in the community. So I think the engineering field is very specific because you grow by giving and learning, where everything that we use is based actually on the open source, right? And I strongly believe in the community. The Krakow is very big for communities. Poland is actually very big for communities as well. I'm also a member of or co-founder of some mastermind groups. So we really hope to grow the future engineering leaders.
I'm sure people are very excited to have someone like yourself part of their community to look up to and just to pick their brain, because you have a lot of experience in this field. So
I hope so. I mean, I picked their brain for learning myself and challenging myself.
And so how did you find your way to Revolut?
At some point in my career, I was looking for a company that will challenge my experience. That is actually, for me, quite important because when you work in a certain field and you grow your experience, especially if you're a leader in a certain field, what you will do is ultimately you will build up your experience. That will build who you are as a leader. And you are definitely applying the same patterns. So basically speaking, it means that you will be constrained to your confirmation bias and your success bias, right? And in the real terms, it means that what you do is same things, just bigger, faster, and better. But that also applies to your failures. So the failures can be also bigger, right? So I really wanted to make sure that I actually have a very different perspective. So I was contacted by Revolut. And when I went through the recruitment process, I was presented with the opportunity to lead Revolut Business engineering. And I loved the idea. Because Revolut is a scale-up company, right? So we grow at a tremendous scale. We call it a rocket ship for a reason. And I realized it's definitely one of the best opportunities for me to unlearn and relearn things. So that's what I was looking for. And be careful what you wish for, because I was really challenged from the day one, like literally from the day one.
And do you still feel challenged today in the work that you're doing?
And I know I will be.
What goes into being the head of engineering for a department?
So I believe I have a number of responsibilities. So primarily, these are product engineering quality, and the speed of delivery, right? So we have a certain product vision and the product strategy, which head of engineering helps to craft, and then to make sure that we actually deliver on it.
And when you talk about products, you're talking about certain features that are available for Revolut Business customers.
Correct. And the same applies to every other head of engineering and in every other department, right? Because we have multiple departments. So for instance, there might be a credit, wealth and trading, et cetera, et cetera. So we help our head of departments to make sure that we have a certain strategy and we know how to deliver on this strategy, right? Revolut is the fintech company, so engineering is the very important part of it. So it also requires overseeing the product launches, right? So when you say product, meaning the different features, for Revolut Business, that's beyond what we see in the application. We have also the APIs, we have the BaaS, so Bank as a Service platform. So overseeing all of these launches. But I would say to do all of that, you need to make sure that you have a team that can deliver on it and you lead the team. So what does it really mean in practice? That means that you are responsible for making sure that we have the best talent possible, that we grow them, and then we make sure that we mentor them and we hire the right people. But you're ultimately responsible to give the final decision on the hiring process as well. So raising the talent bar. So make sure that we have constantly growing bar for engineering because the base of the product is growing. So Revolut Business is the second largest product in Revolut.
Wow.
When it comes to engineering itself and the team, it's over 100 engineers at the moment. When I joined, it was around 70. That was 2 years ago. So we're also growing the number of teams, the number of engineers working for the team. So my role is to make sure that we have the best team. And this team also have the best processes to ensure that we execute on the strategy that I mentioned at the beginning.
And you mentioned earlier the team has grown from 70 to over 100 people. Do you remember the figure of Revolut Business customers from when you started 2 years ago?
I do.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I do. It's close to my heart. I'm super proud to say that we tripled almost the number, for instance, of active businesses in 2 years.
Congratulations. Wow, fantastic.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that because talking about the rocket ship, that's what it means in reality, right? So it's very different to build a product for a certain number of customers than 3 times that, but then you've multiplied that again by 3 and then again by 3. And that's the hyper growth that we see in Revolut. So that's what it means to be a head of engineering, right? To make sure that we have a team and the processes to deliver on that vision.
And how has your experience at Revolut differed from your previous roles in terms of company and also team culture, let's say?
Nowadays, what has changed with especially the evolution of the technologies and the engineering practices is that you can definitely see the difference in the companies that can execute on the vision or not. And you see that very clearly, especially during the last few years. Whether you grow your user base, whether you become profitable, whether you can deliver on your product promises to your users. And some even very big companies fail at that. And you cannot fake this. People will know, engineers will know that actually that's the problem. With Revolut, we're definitely very much focused on executing on the vision and the strategy. And that's very important. That drives every decision, right? So as an engineer, you're directly responsible for commercial success of your products. And you will have commercial KPIs for your team, right? So that's a bit different.
And, you know, someone like me who really doesn't know much about the world of engineering, in a different company, let's say, how does it work?
For us in the fintech, for instance, industry, what is very known is actually there is the business department and there is the IT department. And in Revolut, we get the feedback directly from our users. Whereas in many companies, especially like the traditional companies, there will be a lot of knowledge hops, let's put it this way, right? And so the way between the user and the engineer that does the job is much longer. We want to make sure that we involve engineers in the whole process. So they know very well what are the inefficiencies, right? So what are the bottlenecks? So we encourage engineers to learn about the customer experience of our features. When you're responsible for your commercial success, you're definitely think differently. So you know how the feature that you build will impact users directly, and that changes the perspective. But coming back to your original question, also how the Revolut is different, the biggest difference is in the people in Revolut. What I find is the Revolut attracts certain people. So the talent density is one of the highest I've ever experienced. People are really smart, especially exposed to engineering. I know about other functions, of course, but People are really genuinely smart. And it's combined in Revolut with ambition, really high ambition and drive. If you combine these two very well, and you also foster it by a right engineering culture, you have an amazing mix. And that's what we experience in Revolut, I believe.
So what is your and your team's overall goal for Revolut Business?
That's easy. It's to build the best SME, so small and medium enterprise companies, a global financial solution, right? The one that they can carry on in the pocket anywhere in the world. They can access 24/7 and they can get help 24/7, and they will have access to the best international financial offering globally. One of the goals for Revolut Business also is to identify the new opportunities. And that means, for instance, with management of the bills or invoices, integrations with accounting platforms, more to help you with your financial needs as the business.
It's so interesting to talk to you and get an insight into the world of engineering, especially at your level, because it's such a creative role. And I think that's a misconception maybe a lot of people share as well, that engineers are more technical or are only technical, when there is a technical aspect of it, but it's so creative. You're constantly coming up with solutions and how to problem solve and figure new ways out. It's really impressive.
You touched on a very important point. I think a lot of people think that we enjoy coding the most, right? And that if you probably ask the ChatGPT to generate the image of a software engineer, that will be 2 monitors full of code, some console, and probably the little light and somebody in the hoodie sitting in front of the computer, right? But I think to be a good engineer is actually to solve problems. You can solve problems without writing code. And I think truly, ultimately, some of the best engineers that I know can do that.
I believe it.
I hope I inspire people to do it.
Yeah. And when you're talking about inspiring other people, I mean, being a manager is kind of giving that inspiration, empowering your team members to do well. So what advice do you have for other managers out there who work with engineers? Because I know sometimes not all managers of engineers are engineers themselves.
Absolutely. Your ultimate goal is that your team will succeed. So that's your goal. How to do that? Well, one thing that is definitely working well in Revolut and that you will learn after joining Revolut is that definitely we have a culture that we want to bring the best from our engineers. How do you do that? So I think as a manager, you can do it by making sure that you are a sparring partner for your team. So they will bring the idea, they will bring the solution, or they will bring the incident, for instance, and the postmortem. And your role ultimately is, first of all, to bring the best of it. So to make sure that you shape the idea to the best possible way. Second is to make sure that people know how to be a sparring partners for themselves. So ultimately, your role as a leader is to create leaders. And that's actually a very rewarding part of this role.
And how do you manage the technical aspects of engineering with the interpersonal skills required for being a team leader?
Truth is, if you want to have an impact on your team, even as an engineer, even if you're not a leader, you need to have communication skills and interpersonal skills. So let's say maybe there is an idea, an improvement, or a feature that I want to work on. You need to make sure that you actually convince others to do it. So interpersonal skills are truly important. The more impact you want to have, so for instance, the more senior role is, the more important these skills will become. So I would say work on your interpersonal skills, work on your communication skills. You need to make sure that you can build that vision together with the people and embark them on the journey, right? So whether it's a tiny improvement, whether it's a company vision, the techniques are the same. So how to do it well? Mentorship is definitely one of the things that can work really well. So in Revolut, it's quite unique, but pretty much every engineer from a certain seniority is what we call a functional manager, right? So is an engineering leader for somebody else. And you're basically speaking a mentor. Your job is to help others to succeed. Through this mentorship in both aspects of the relationship, so whether you're a mentee or a mentor, you learn how to communicate better.
And going back to developing products and overseeing launches for Revolut Business, can you share any key features or projects you and your team are working on?
Yeah, sure. Plenty of things going on at the moment. In the Revolut Business itself, what we focus on primarily at the moment is really rethinking how we do the onboarding. So it's seamless and working well globally for all of our customers from around the world. We are also working on the Singapore launch. It's something I know a lot of us were waiting for, and I'm so excited about Singapore. We're also launching some products similar to Ultra in the business. So if you're a user of Revolut Business, expect some interesting, great perks in your business accounts. So this is
exciting.
Going to be exciting. We're definitely working on some automation. So for instance, payment automation. So we hope that very soon you will be able to upload, for instance, an invoice or a bill and fully automate your payments. We're also working on different products for billing and expenses management, especially at scale. So we know that a lot of companies have a lot of them, and you need to integrate that with your financial platforms and accounting platforms. So that's what we will also hope for to integrate.
Yeah. And I think this all ties in together, but from an engineering point of view, what's exciting about working on Revolut Business compared to previous jobs?
Oh, I can answer that personally. So as I said, when I joined Revolut, it was especially for Revolut Business. I was super excited about that. Why? For engineers, it means that this product is naturally very, very complex. And I think I will repeat myself probably, but I would say at the same time, when I joined the Revolut Business, I realized how strong the Revolut team is, right? And I mentioned the talent density, I mentioned the ambition and the culture of engineering, which is really focused on execution. So what we commit to, we deliver on. And that's something really, I would say, inspiring. So that's something that gives me a lot of energy.
Yeah. And let's take it on the other side of the app now. So what would you say are the strong points of Revolut Business from a customer's point of view?
Of course. We're definitely not compromising on our customers' needs. And we really work together with them to make sure that we have as friendly financial solution as possible. And as I mentioned before, the one that you can carry on around in the pocket 24/7, and it will be working for you 24/7. We work on with Revolut Business on the ecosystem of different features and products integrations that will deliver you one app that help you to manage all things money for the business. So giving you the best of Revolut. All of it's in a Revolut app, which you can download straight to your phone and start to use and get the most of it.
Yeah, makes it really easy. All right, on that note, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with more Insider Views. This episode is brought to you by Revolut Savings. Grow your savings faster with interest paid daily at excellent rates with instant access. Open an account in seconds and see your money grow, compound, and increase every single day. Make your money make money with Revolut Savings. Interest rates vary by plan. Plan fees and savings terms and conditions apply. We're back here on the Revolut Insider podcast with Wojtek Ptak, Head of Engineering for Revolut Business. Wojtek, when we first started talking, you mentioned having worked in a lot of different capacities, from being a consultant to even being a CTO at one point. What do you think you've gained from having been in such an array of positions?
I think the most important was diversity of problems, diversity of perspectives. So that was the most beautiful part of it. And I have to say, I was super excited about the fact that I had a chance to work with senior executives from around the globe for working with global companies. You can learn a lot from these people.
I'm sure.
And coming back to your previous question, I also had to work on my communication skills. But that made me a better engineer. It also prepared me to work with international teams with a massive diversity embedded in their DNA. Your team is actually really spread around the globe, and you will be working mostly remote first, and your team might be from Krakow, from Berlin, Porto, London, New York. So it was very helpful as well.
And being part of an industry that's constantly evolving and coming out with new technologies, how does this influence your work?
It is influencing it a lot, right? So it's true that especially the financial industry is being disrupted, and we're the disruptors. So that's another benefit of being on the rocket ship, is that you can see from the inside, right? How to disrupt the market. The thing that is true, especially for engineering, is that you cannot stop learning. So you need to be passionate about learning new things, but it gives you a lot of satisfaction. And you need to constantly follow the trends, follow the news, and follow the competition. But as I said, it's very rewarding. We definitely live in the very interesting moment. So far, before Revolut, we thought about banks in the traditional way. It was the account, maybe a card, definitely a credit card in most of the countries. And I was using it for investments, mortgage, etc., etc. With super apps like ours, the true face of the financial institution is changing and shifting. We want to provide our retail and business customers a system, the super app that will actually help them on many things around their money, right? So that's, I think, what is truly changing in the front of our eyes.
And you mentioned AI earlier. How do you think that's affecting the world of engineering?
Oh, massively. AI is definitely changing the way we think about engineering. We use engineering tools. I think the best comes from the collaboration of engineers use the AI, and it helps them to become better and more productive. So it might mean to help me to understand some topics better and quicker. It might be to gain another perspective. For instance, as we know, some of the work is being reviewed by other engineers. So AI can review some of the work for us as well.
And do you have any advice for engineers who may not have as much experience as you?
I will come back to this learning. Never stop learning. Learn how to learn. And that's a skill in itself, right? I will come back to mentoring. You can do mentoring at any level. What is less known probably is that mentoring was a big part of success of many recognizable and known leaders, engineering leaders. A person that challenged their ideas. I think that shows you that mentoring can never end, and you can always get a different perspective and in your team build relationships where you can actually be challenged and be mentored.
What about for those who are just starting out in their engineering careers?
I would say welcome on the journey, right? And it's a fantastic job. I learned programming when I was a kid, and I'm lucky enough at some point people started to pay me for what I for what I love, and that's the most beautiful thing. And I remember when I learned programming, I was fascinated by the fact that a machine does what I wanted to do, and it never ended because then I could create products and features that people loved and used, right? And that made some businesses successful. So if I would start at the moment, I would take time to understand what makes it fun for you, what drives you, what makes you smile and wanted to get more of it, what gives you energy, and build on top of it, make it fun. You will see that you can have a great impact. And remember, Revolut was built in exactly the same way, right? So somebody thought, oh, we can make an impact. And from 0 to 40 million customers, we built a massive company. And that's how you can change the world.
Yeah. And I'm sure as head of engineering for Revolut Business, you talk to quite a few engineers and you see them join the team. Are you also part of the hiring process to get them on your team?
Yes, I do. It's a part of a job. So as I mentioned, the part of the job of the head of engineering is to make sure that we hire the best talent possible, right? I participate in several parts of the hiring process. So you can meet me during the interviews.
So how can someone stand out during one of their engineering interviews?
This is really important. Be yourself. I know it's hard, but try to relax. Coming back to the communication and interpersonal skills. Be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. Second is be precise and concise. Understand the question that is being asked. Ask follow-up questions. People very rarely do that, right? And answer the question. People sometimes talk a lot around the question, but they don't answer our questions.
How do you find time even to conduct interviews?
So first of all, it's as I mentioned, it's definitely the part of the responsibility to make sure that we have the right talent. And I would say that the quick question that I ask myself, is the person better than, let's say, an average person in our team? And that's one of the tricks how to make a good decision on the hiring. So what does it mean that a given engineer is better than an average person in our team? So it might be because they will bring an interesting experience working with certain aspects of the products that I know that we will be working on in the future. So bringing this diversity of experience is also something important. And a lot of people will argue, but my job is actually to sell Revolut Business to them, right?
Okay,
so on the interview, you try to present yourself to me, but at the same time, my job is to make sure that you're excited to join us. So that's a very important part. And it's actually a good check for me. So how people see Revolut Business and how do they see joining Revolut Business, right? What opportunities do they hope to get?
Yeah.
What will be the future for them, right?
Exactly.
What will be the culture that they join? So For instance, during the team fitting interviews, I definitely want to have a conversation with the candidate. So it's not like a very strict scripted interview, and I do my best to learn about the candidate to make sure that the person understands the company and the culture of the team that they join, and they're actually really excited about it.
Yeah. And you work here in Poland, but you manage a global team. And I remember when I interviewed our people partner, Michelle Mayunda, who's our diversity and inclusion specialist, she mentioned that having people from diverse backgrounds really contributes to a greater ability to problem solve because there's room to cover more ground. Do you see this reflected in your team?
Absolutely. If you're like us and you have global ambitions, having a global team enables that. You cannot build a global product having a local team because you won't understand. You won't have this within your company, this rich culture that will bring a different perspectives.
Definitely. What do you look for when hiring someone to be a part of Revolut Business?
I know that Revolut hiring process is not the easiest one, but at the same time, if you join us, you get, as we discussed, the top quality international talent, a very high talent bar. What we look for in engineers is a number of things. First question is that I ask myself is, can you own the part of your product? As we discussed, you will join the team that is responsible commercially for its success, right? So you will have access to your users. You will co-own and co-build your roadmap, and you will be executing on this roadmap. So can you own it, like truly own it? Do you understand the product? Do you understand the features? Do you understand the business processes behind them? Do you know how to improve them? Second is, do you own your commitments? So can you execute? If you say that you will deliver something, can you really do it? Have you done it? Have you got examples of your failures and what you learned from them? Another thing is, can you make your environment around you better? It's teamwork. You cannot go very far alone. So can you make the team that you work with and the department that you work with better? Can you give me an examples of how you share the knowledge? Another thing, the most important, I think, for us is, are you a doer? So basically speaking, are you proactive when it comes to problem solving, and are you action oriented? Give me examples, like what have you seen that you could improve? Why did you improve it? What did you do to improve it? What did you learn from it, etc., etc.?
It makes sense that you look for a lot because people do a lot here.
People do a lot. I think the unique thing is, and I consider it definitely a huge benefit working in Revolut. As I mentioned, being a very large company, we're very agile at the same time, meaning that we can pivot very quickly, right? So if you join us, people tell us it's still the experience that you get from a startup. So when you see something that doesn't work, you will fix it.
Are there any mentorship tips you'd like to share with other leaders, or how they can help support other engineers in the industry, or just simply future leaders?
That's a very good question. Thank you for that. Before I answer, I would say we know very well people don't leave companies. They primarily leave leaders. They leave their managers. So in other words, look into yourself, right? Look into the reasons why people quit and really try to understand that. There will be a lot of learnings for you there. So be humble and speak openly to people that leave your company and understand what are the problems. So that's the first thing. Second is get involved. So that's very different in Revolut compared to other companies. So even on the senior engineering leadership level, we're very hands-on. We understand our products. We understand what they need to do. As I mentioned, we're sparring partners for our engineers, and that's a very important part of our job. Try to find a sparring partner for yourself. Also, get involved in different initiatives that will give you different perspectives.
Thank you for these. It's really great advice. And I'm going to turn that question around and ask you, what advice would you give to yourself when you were just starting out in your career?
Oh, that's a good one, and a deep one at the same time. I think I was always this passionate person that really wanted to build products and know that I can improve people's lives through these products. So I think the first thing I would say is never give up and challenge yourself. But other one is very personal and something we haven't touched on, but learn how to take care of yourself and your loved ones, because this is the most important thing that you have.
I love that. Thank you so much, Wojtek, and thank you for being here. I really appreciate you sharing kind of a masterclass into the world of engineering and at the top level, considering your position as head of engineering here at Revolut Business. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me, and I hope you will learn something from it.
And for those listening, thank you so much. You can add the podcast to your favorites so you don't miss an episode, and follow us on Instagram to see what we're up to at Revolut Insider. Thanks for tuning in to the Revolut Insider Podcast, where we explore Revolut's rocket ship from the inside out. Until next time, remember, the sky's not the limit, it's just the beginning. Revolut. Change the way you money.